Good evening. I'm going to call the Committee on Ways and Means meeting to order. Committee Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assembly members Anderson, Backus, Brown May, Dickman, Hafen, Hibbets, Howdigi, Koenig, Mosca, O'Neill, Torres Fawcett, Watts, Yeager, and Chair Monroe Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark Assembly Member Brown May, Assembly Member Hafen, Assembly Member Hibbets, and Assembly Member Torres Fawcett present as they arrive. Welcome to the late evening version of Ways and Means. We will have public comment at the end of tonight's meeting. There are 5 bills on our agenda. We are going to roll Assembly Bill 169 and Assembly Bill 460 to tomorrow's agenda. We will be starting with AB 598, and then we will do AB 534, and we will end tonight with AB 304. We will have public comment at the end of tonight's meeting. Our number is 669-900-6833. Our meeting ID is 861-431-43680. Then please press pound. I'll remind everyone attending to either mute or silence your electronic devices. During testimony, sometimes we hear things that we don't agree with, but I insist on professional and polite interactions at all times. If for some reason you decide not to be, I have absolutely no problem escorting you outside of my committee room, and that includes the members on this dais. We will be nice to one another. And so with that, we will start with our first bill hearing and open the hearing for Assembly Bill 598 and welcome Speaker Yeager to the testimony table.
Good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno, Vice Chair Backus, member of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. I'm Steve Yeager. I represent Assembly District 9 in Southwest Las Vegas, and it's an honor to present Assembly Bill 598 to you this evening. This bill was just introduced on the floor today, so you may not have an actual hard copy of it because I don't think it's been printed yet by the printer, but it is available online on the legislature's website and on Nellis, so I would direct you to there. Thankfully, it's not a very long bill, and I'm going to try to be as concise as possible with my remarks given the time constraints we're operating under. I think all of you were here last session in 2023, and you may remember we passed Assembly Bill 528, which was landmark legislation to address the growing homelessness crisis in southern Nevada. It was a bipartisan bill, and it was signed into law by Governor Lombardo, ultimately creating the Campus for Hope. Campus for Hope is a $200 million public-private partnership that will transform the lives of thousands of our community's most vulnerable. The campus will provide tools and resources to people, enabling them to rebuild their lives and return to living productive and independent lives. After the bill was signed, a technical advisory committee was then assembled to create the detailed plan, file an ultimately successful application with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and find an appropriate location for this transformative campus. The state, Clark County, and the city of Las Vegas identified potential locations, and a 26-acre parcel on the state's Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services campus was identified as an ideal location. This campus currently offers similar services. It is centrally located, and it offers convenient access to public transportation. The state, as many of you know, has done a phenomenal job of relocating services that currently operate on this 26-acre parcel. These new locations are significantly improved for everyone, including more than 12 minors in foster care with behavioral health needs who are currently living in what can only be described as dilapidated cottages on the campus. Today, I'm introducing Assembly Bill 598 to request an exemption from state public works for these projects and allowing the city of Las Vegas to have oversight. There is significant precedent in our state for this type of request. This will ensure a responsible and expeditious path for these services to come online for the most vulnerable in our community. The construction of the $200 million Campus for Hope will pay a prevailing wage, as is stipulated in existing law. We have secured, through this committee's effort, an additional $7.5 million for the construction of new purpose-built cottages for dozens of foster children with behavioral health needs. This project will be under a project labor agreement. I want to underscore how important both of these projects are to help put faces to who we are helping. There are an estimated 8,000 people in our community that are experiencing homelessness, and thousands more that are in crisis. These are kids aging out of foster care with no family to help support them, seniors being priced out of their homes, single parents who lost their only source of income, families crippled with medical debt. The Campus for Hope will provide temporary housing, case management, childcare, vocational training, medical, dental, behavioral, and substance abuse counseling to help them out of homelessness. The foster children that are currently residing on the Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services campus are in buildings originally built in the 1960s and the 1980s. These kids deserve better. These kids and their families cannot wait. Assembly Bill 598 will ensure we can quickly and responsibly bring better housing for these kids and better services for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Chair, that concludes my remarks. I would like to hand it over to Mr. Aguero just to give you a high-level overview of the bill and what we're trying to achieve, and then we'll be ready for questions.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Members, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I will be very brief in my overview and will be happy to answer any questions that you have. There are three sections of the bill. The first provides an exemption to the public works process. The second, there are four sections. The section makes it clear that the project will pay the prevailing wage. The third is specific to the children's cottages that I'll talk about in just one moment, and essentially says that if that project enters a project labor agreement, it could be outside of the prevailing wage, but only if that takes place. And then Section 4 provides a series of definitions that are consistent with the Campus for Hope project and the children's cottages. Madam Chair, this bill is brought forward largely as a result of the fact that in going through this process in the application, it was identified that there were children that were being served. These are children that are in specialized foster care, as the speaker outlined. The Campus for Hope Foundation has made it clear that not one shovel of dirt will be turned until the facilities that these children are in have been replaced and there's a better place for more children to be served. That is exactly what this is intended to do. In working with local government partners, state government partners, and I want to express specific thanks to the speaker and this body and your colleagues in the Senate for their vision and providing a pathway for this remarkable project to get done. But in doing that, identifying that these children needed to have services, the state, local governments, private service providers came together to and the Campus for Hope Foundation came together to find a pathway not only to provide better services, but more capacity for these kids to be able to be served throughout the state of Nevada. With that, what this is intended to do is to ensure that this project can be done faster and at a lower cost because bringing these facilities online as quickly as possible has always been what the intent to do is. So, Madam Chair, I'm sure there are 1,000 people that I forgot to thank because of this process, because there are 1,000 people that made this day possible. But I will reserve doing that given the late hour and the agenda that this body has been undertaking. If there are questions, I would be honored to try and answer them.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for Assembly Member Hibbets?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm hoping that one of you can answer this. If not, maybe we can find an answer somewhere else. Just, does anybody know how long the state has owned that land?
For the record, Jeremy Aguero, Assemblyman, I don't know. I know it's been as long as we have ever gone back and looked, certainly well before the 1970s in terms of where we were there. We will look that up and we will circle back and provide that information to you. Yes, sir.
Assembly Member Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this bill. I know we've been discussing this a lot in Interim Finance Committee, so really appreciate it. And I'm sorry if you said this already, I'm just trying to understand, is it that then the Campus for Hope construction would not happen until this happens first, or would it be simultaneous, but then this bill allows it to go faster? Just trying to understand that part.
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Jeremy Aguero. The idea is for both projects to move forward as quickly as possible. There is an interim program for where these kids can be located while the project starts construction. The idea, and I have to give credit to Director Whitley, who frankly found a solution when one was absent, as well as the remarkable folks at Clark County Social Services, as well as the folks at Legal Aid, who all came together to find a way to find an interim solution where these kids can be moved almost immediately into facilities that are as good, well, better than where they are today, while these facilities are constructed. The idea here is to move these projects forward concurrently, so those kids are only in a temporary element while these other more permanent pieces are constructed. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for being here so late. And maybe I just missed this, but what is the reason for going outside of the Public Works?
Thank you for asking the question. I probably should have spent more time. The real reason for that is it would simply cause a duplication of efforts. This project will still have the oversight of the city of Las Vegas in terms of things like building permits and inspections. It would simply cause it to be duplicated. In addition to that, the lease in which the Campus for Hope will enter into is a long-term lease. This isn't a public building, it's a private building. But with regard to the children's cottages, to be perfectly frank, the Campus for Hope Foundation made a commitment to all the folks involved, including the work with Legal Aid, to try and build as many cottages on that facility. We're hoping to get up to 36 as quickly as possible. These kids need a better place to be, and that was impressed upon us in no uncertain way. This will allow that project to move faster as a result of being through a single process at the City of Las Vegas as opposed to a duplicated process with the state and the City of Las Vegas.
Okay, thank you. So this should solve some of the problems we've been talking about in IFC for so long with those children?
Steve Yeager for the record. I've obviously been part of those discussions, and yes, this is the intent, is to figure out a permanent, better place for those high needs children that we've been speaking of, and to do it in as quick of a way as possible. And I want to give kudos as well. We had a couple very, very large meetings over the interim, and frankly, I didn't think we were going to come to an agreement. I sort of saw this whole thing blowing up because I was like, I don't know what the solution is, but this is the solution, and I think we're at a place where everybody agrees this is the best solution. We just want to get them built as quickly as possible so they can have a permanent place.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I think there's a lot of moving parts with the Campus for Hope project. And just full disclosure, I grew up in that neighborhood. I grew up right across the street. I used to bike through that area and CSN as a little kid, and my parents still live there today. And so this is something that, you know, when I go back home, this is something that my parents' neighbors are talking to me about and asking me what we're doing. So I just want to kind of understand what we're going to do to ensure that we are engaging the community throughout this process, and just making sure that there's been a lot of concerns about safety. There's a lot of concerns that this is going to negatively impact the community. So I just want to understand what we will do and what the community will do, what local governments will do to ensure that's not the case.
Madam Chair, for the record, Jeremy Aguero, there's a long answer to that. And I will tell you, there was no one that cares more about safety than the Campus for Hope Foundation, making sure that the neighborhood is respected, that the project is developed in a manner that ensures the safety of the people that are served by the facility, as well as the areas that are surrounding, is critically important to the project. There's been engagement with the surrounding neighbors, as well as both the folks that are have other uses around, as well as in the neighborhood. We've heard some of the concern. I think some of you have probably had an opportunity to meet with the new executive director, who has talked extensively about what needs to be there. I think it is perhaps incredibly important to put on the record what this project is and what this project is not. This is not an encampment. I think everyone should I say that respectfully, and I don't mean to make it sound anything other than that. The legislation that was originally required meant that every participating municipality had to have a navigation center within its boundaries. This is a navigation center that would be low barrier to ensure that anyone that is experiencing homelessness has a place to be able to go, either a facility or a process. This is a transformational services center, right? This is not a place where someone who that you would imagine in terms of some type of homeless encampment, but rather an area where all of the support services and the transitional housing that is available to ensure that people can work an income plan, that can work a plan to get themselves back on their feet and can find a way to get reintegrated. These are not the traditional homeless that sometimes we see stereotyped. Rather, these are folks that look like you and look like me and that are in the community looking for a pathway to do better. And I think when we think about a facility like this one that is designed to ensure safety and security, that is designed to have integration within the Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services campus, and with, frankly, an executive director who has a demonstrated history of not only capability and experience, but I think understanding of what it means to deal with the surrounding area and ensure that people in need are also treated with an equal level of respect, should reflect the fact that this facility is something that I believe this body will ultimately be very proud of, and I think it will integrate in and enhance the community as opposed to detract from it.
Thank you. And I just wanted that record clear, because what I don't want to, in 10 years, I want to make sure that there is a legislative record, because in 10 years, if that community continues to see a negative impact, I want them to be able to say that that was never the intent of this project, and that the legislature has a responsibility to do something about it, because we have the responsibility to ensure that those families that live in that area, because that is an area that is predominantly working class families, that they have a responsibility to feel safe. And I know that that is not the intent of this body, and I will personally, I mean, I'll be checking every week, when I go visit my mom's house. So I look forward to seeing that transformational project at work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Assembly Member Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the bill presentation. It's great to see you here at this late hour. Thanks for sticking with it. I have questions relative to the actual references in the bill. And just for clarification, I'm trying to just wrap my brain around to understand where the exceptions are. So in item number 2, section 1, sub 2, except as otherwise provided in subsection 3, the provisions of this NRS 338.013 to 090 inclusive apply to any contract awarded. And then in section 3, it says provisions of NRS 338.013 do not apply to a contract awarded by a Campus for Hope. So I'm a little bit lost in there. When I look at these provisions, 338, and we're in state contracting, and I've spent a little bit of time like in that window, in that region in particular, meeting state requirements. In here we talk about prevailing wages, procedures for determining wages, right? Project labor agreements, like how are we doing that? And so all of that contracting is in this section.
Yes, ma'am.
What parts of this apply to what we expect when we do public works and what do not? Can you delineate that for me, please?
I sure can. Assembly Member Brown May, Jeremy Aguero, for the record. The exception that is provided in subsection 2 specifically requires that the Campus for Hope project is a prevailing wage project. It has been since day one. The proponents have always said that is exactly what it's going to be. So while the project itself is exempt from public works, we needed to make sure that it's exempt from public works except for the provisions that are specific to prevailing wage. That's what number 2 does, is make sure that it is clear to everyone that the Campus for Hope project is a prevailing wage project. The exemption that is provided in section 3, is specific to the element under the children's cottages. And essentially what we did was we reached out to some of the labor folks and we said, hey, look, we have $7.5 million. We need to build as many of these cottages as humanly possible. we believe we can do it. We believe that that's going to get done. But if we need to come together and find a way to work to make sure that we deliver on that promise, we would love to have the opportunity to have a conversation to say, hey, look, if we could work together on this, we'd like the ability to be able to do that. So what Section 3 says is if there is a project labor agreement only on the cottage component in building these for these kids, that if the labor folks come together with the Campus for Hope Foundation and say, we're going to work together, and maybe it's going to be a little different than what would be in the prevailing wage, it provides the option for those groups to come together in the event we need to get, 5 more units and it costs us $500,000 more, or something along those lines. It simply preserves the option for collaboration between the project and labor if they so choose to do so.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. Into contracting. Where that piece of property sits currently, you would have dual authority. So typically we would go to the state fire marshal, we would go to the state board of contractors, we would go as opposed to city. Does the city of Las Vegas defer this project, or are they taking full responsibility and the state is deferring their authority?
Sure. Assemblymember Brown-May, Jeremy Aguero. The answer to that question is we have worked hand in glove with the city of Las Vegas. They have an affirmative responsibility to make sure that they're overseeing all of the project development issues. They will do the inspections. They have been a remarkable partner throughout this process. And so all of those things still apply under the city ordinance. None of that goes away. And so we're simply not duplicating those efforts, but ensuring that all of those requirements are met just like any other project that would be built anywhere else in the city of Las Vegas.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then just for clarification, if city is then taking this on, they would have a city public meeting to hear feedback from the neighbors and all of the concerns that have come out that would go to city planning. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, there will certainly be public meetings throughout the entirety of the process. However, the process will be different as a result of the fact that the project will be going through a different path that we are saying here. Whatever the normal and customary requirements are in terms of a building inspection, for example, or some type of permit for a building would have to go through that process. But since the project has been and it's long been used for this specific purpose, the city's entitlements will continue to carry forward, the state's entitlements for what this project is used for will continue to move forward under NRS 278.
Thank you. So this is a fiscal committee, and this BDR was just introduced earlier today, so there are no fiscal notes associated with it as of yet. Can you tell us, will there be any fiscal impact to the state's general fund, or anything within this piece of legislation?
Madam Chair, for the record, Jeremy Aguero, we are unaware of anything that would cost the state anything at all as a result of this.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And we will invite to the table anyone that's here that wants to testify in support of Assembly Bill 598. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Virginia Valentine, Valentine. On behalf of the Nevada Resort Association, we're here, of course, in support of AB 598. We support this bill because it allows for the expeditious construction and completion of the Campus for Hope. And as you know and just heard, the Campus for Hope will provide transitional housing and services for those in need of housing. Passage of this bill will allow the construction to proceed as soon as possible at the Campus for Hope. The project includes new upgraded facilities for children in foster care who have special needs, the ability to move swiftly and minimize their disruptions, and deliver the facilities and services as soon as possibly enabled by this bill. On behalf of the resorts, we want to thank all of you, the chair, many of you who supported this legislation that got the ball rolling on this project in 2023, the governor, the majority leader, and all of you for your past support and your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Chair and members of the committee, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eric Hansen. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Wynn Resorts. I'm here in strong support of Assembly Bill 598. This bill removes unnecessary barriers to the development of the Campus for Hope project, a nonprofit-led project focused on addressing homelessness, behavioral health, and substance abuse in southern Nevada. It also allows for the construction of specialized cottages for children with developmental and behavioral challenges. These therapeutic spaces are urgently needed, and the bill ensures they can be built efficiently and responsibly. AB 598 will help the project move forward faster with the right partners and protections in place. I respectfully urge your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is John Maddox. I'm the Senior Vice President for Government Relations for Caesars Entertainment and also the Chair of the Nevada Resort Association. I'm here on behalf of both organizations in support of this bill. The project is both an example of the Nevada gaming industry's efforts to improve the communities where we operate and our team members live, and the positive difference that can result from the public-private partnerships, and urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Chair, members of the committee, Jonathan Norman with the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. And we want to thank community leaders for working to address homelessness in southern Nevada, both on this dais in this body and in southern Nevada on the ground. We look forward to collaborating with the Campus for Hope project to ensure that those in need of assistance have a robust system of care to help them navigate housing stability. And that work has continued in this legislative session with bills like AB 475 providing rental assistance to diversion programs. We applaud the Campus of Hope leaders for expanding their efforts to include a much-needed investment in the stability of children's mental health services, which became intertwined with the project when the selected site proposed demolishing the buildings that are currently used for our children's mental health services. And as you heard, those buildings were in need of demolishing and updating. Upon learning about the continuum of care, how vital these bed spaces are for our most vulnerable youth, and how desperately the system needs support, a generous commitment to rebuild these services was made by the Campus of Hope Board. Together with a plan to relocate other services throughout the community, Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada supports the relocation and rebuilding plan for the children's mental health services previously housed on the campus. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Chair and members of the committee, Nick Vasiliadis for the record on behalf of the Southern Nevada Building Trades Unions. Everybody, including and especially most vulnerable populations, deserve to be in buildings that were built by highly skilled, highly trained workforces. Provisions of this bill will ensure a locally sourced and highly skilled, highly trained workforce will build these projects to make sure that both the kids going into these cottages and the larger project for the homeless population will also be in those highly skilled, highly trained workforce built buildings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Jason Gray, Vice President, Government Affairs, MGM Resorts. I want to thank Speaker Yeager for bringing forward the bill. MGM Resorts supports AB 598 and the Campus for Hope project. We were proud to testify in support of legislation passed in the 2023 session. It's a really important project. There's a lot of really hard work that's been put into it by a lot of really good people over the course of the last 2 years. This is a critical piece to keep the project progressing, and we respectfully urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Paul Muratkin with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber will, of course, like to thank Speaker Yeager on his efforts on AB 598. The Chamber is in support of the policy and the fiscal components of the bill, and we did support the original legislation last session in AB 528 as well. So we thank the committee and the Speaker for his efforts with the industry and the partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Russell Rowe here on behalf of Boyd Gaming Corporation, which is a proud partner to the Campus of Hope, and with our gaming partners, we strongly support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else approach the table here in Carson City and not seeing anyone in our room in Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone line. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 598?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 598, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good evening. This is Mindy Elliott with Flynn Judici Government Affairs, calling on behalf of Nevada Housing Coalition and Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority, we are in full support for the reasons that have been stated, and we thank the sponsor for introducing the bill.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Do we have any other callers?
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to opposition. If there's anyone here in the room that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 598, I invite you to come to the table. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City and no one at the table in Las Vegas, we'll go again to the phone lines to see if we have anyone who's joined us to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 598.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 598, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. The only issue I have with it is the impact to the Desert Regional Center Intermediate Care Facility, or so it appears, which is a quasi-adjacent property to Vance. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Broadcast, do we have any other callers that would like to testify in opposition?
Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 598? I invite you to the table. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City and no one in Las Vegas, we'll go one last time to the phone line to see if we have anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 598.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 598, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. We will ask the bill sponsor if he has any closing comments. You are so welcome. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 598. Thank you all for joining us. Moving on to the next bill on our agenda, members, we will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 534, which revises provisions relating to elections.
Good evening, Chair Moreno and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. I'm joined by Chief Deputy Gabriel DeCara. We're here today to present the fiscal impact of Assembly Bill 534. Assembly Bill 534 is a bill based on internal-external feedback from the most recent election cycle. That was my first cycle where I served as Nevada's chief elections officer, and there are many places I would like to improve the law. This is one of them. This bill has several amendments. Most of them are policy focused, so I will not go into all of them. Some local governments place fiscal notes relating to the jail voting section of this bill. This amendment should resolve those notes by removing the jail voting section. The only fiscal impact for the state in this bill is in Section 16, which is funding for state workers to attend the annual elections conference. This provision is also in Senate Bill 74, which is making its way back to Assembly after passing the Senate yesterday. Ensuring our agency can fund this training on an ongoing basis is important to our state. There is another provision in this bill that has drawn a fiscal note from local governments, the 24-hour ballot processing requirement. I want to be clear, this provision comes from the countless Nevadans who have called, emailed our office, communicated with my staff, or reached out to me personally to talk about processing times. Nevadans want election results in reasonable time frame. I've worked directly with Clark County Manager Kevin Schiller on the amended language for the 24-hour requirement, which includes a waiver option by the Secretary. I would hope that the counties with a year's worth of notice about this bill would be able to accommodate the 24-hour requirement by next June's primary election without any undue burden to the taxpayer. I would also like to note that we have submitted amended language for the bill, which includes a waiver process for good cause shown. With that, we are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we have a few questions. It's a very thick bill. We are going to start our questions with Assembly Member Hodeggy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a couple of questions, and they are policy-related questions. I know we're in a fiscal committee, but that's because I sat on the policy committee that heard the bill. And I'm looking at the amendment. I don't know if the concerns that we had were, well, I know that I had were fully addressed. And so I want to go to section 20 that deals with the 24-hour count of the mail ballot. I know that our concerns in the committee were expressed during the hearing, but the amendment still keeps it in. So how is this enforceable? Like, what happens if a county isn't able to count ballots within 24 hours that are received via mail?
Madam Chair, Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. In reality, there is no enforceability or accountability, but this, I think, sets a standard for the voter to understand that we're taking this serious. We're working with our county clerks to understand the responsibility that they have to ensure that Nevada voters get information in real time. We know that Clark County had 99% of the ballots on hand election night. They were able to get 90% of those ballots processed. The 99% remaining, or the 9% remaining, were the 57,000 ballots collected in the drop boxes at election centers that took the time to process. If we could figure out how to solve that bottleneck, we've been working diligently with Clark County. They have presented a plan to legislative leadership, to myself, to the governor's office, that increased capacity to about 80,000, which will help solve some of that issues. But it's continuing to obviously improve the process continuously. So if we set an expectation and a standard to improve processes, we can try to hit those. I think I like to focus on the positive rather than the negative.
And follow, Madam Chair? Thank you. And I know I'm looking at the new language that says there's a waiver. What happens if a waiver is denied?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, Madam Chair. Obviously, I'm going to work with the counties. I work with the clerks already. We work really closely with them. We want them to be successful. This is an opportunity to work together. Look, if a situation comes in, like where we've in the past, where we've had bad weather in certain situations, we want to make sure that the clerks are working their hardest to make sure they're meeting the expectation of the voter. And these issues are going to come up way before the actual day of the election. We're going to know. We know that Washoe County has a capacity issue from just a purely pace or space perspective. They need additional space, but in order to get that additional space, they need additional revenues. We want to continue to work with them to meet these expectations.
Thank you. And then just my last question, which is fiscal related. Okay, now you mentioned you by deleting sections 2, 15, and 21, which removes the sections related to voting in jail, you were able to remove your fiscal notes?
That is correct.
Thank you, Madam.
Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I know also when you were testifying, you had indicated that as part of another bill that's moving through the Senate, Senate Bill 74, that there was like to pay for training. I assume that's kind of coming from the localities to receive training from the Secretary of State, and that's going to cost some money. My notes have that the Senate Committee on Finance did not provide general fund appropriations for SB 74. And I understand that if this moves forward, I'm assuming your ask is that you guys do need these funds for that limited purpose if it's not in there. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Backus. Gabriel DeCara for the record. I had a brief conversation with our LCB analyst earlier today. I think we need to figure that out. These funds are repaid from the per existing statute from the statutory contingency fund, which I believe is separate from general fund appropriations. We don't want to have we don't want to look like we are double dipping on paper. So I can work with the LCB analysts and we can get that figured out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, just so everyone doesn't know, because it happened in the last hearing, is obviously the contingency fund is something that we actually budget and fund from general funds. So we always need to make sure that the contingency fund has funding. I would love to have like a magical little account that we could go to pay our state bills, but we just need to be on top of it. And if it's something that you all need, it's something that as a committee we need to like think about and make sure we're like budgeting appropriately. But thank you so much.
Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for hanging out with us all evening. This evening, I was going to say today, but this evening is the first time I've had a chance to review this amendment. So I'm wondering if we can hear from the the counties and the clerks as to whether or not this is going to address their fiscal concerns that they had. And probably not everything, I understand that, but I'd like to be able to, maybe it'll reduce it, and just so we can get if that's okay with the chair.
I'm sure they're going to come up when we go to testimony, and they'll let us know. We won't hold them to 2 minutes. We'll let them.
Thank
We'll
you, Chair.
let them answer it, yes. Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. So if the counties would come to the table. I'm not sure when, if you got the amended tonight as we did, if you could just speak on the bill and the amendment and how you feel that impacts your counties and the elections.
Good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matijevich, Cadence Some point before we're done here, I'm going to have you guys do that along with me, because I'm pretty sure you can all do it by now. I represent Washoe County as a government affairs liaison and appreciate the opportunity to come forth and address the provisions of this bill. And we have had ongoing conversations with Secretary Aguilar and his team since this bill was heard in the policy committee. And indeed, this amendment does address some of the things that we had raised at that time. But it does not, unfortunately, at least in Washoe County's place, address all of them. And particularly, as you heard the Secretary speak to, the provision in Section 20 that requires processing of all mail ballots within 24 hours of receipt. That is challenging for us, both from a fiscal and an operational standpoint. Our fiscal note outlines all of the ways that will result in costs, and it breaks it down. I'm happy to go into any of those, Chair, if you'd like. But for us, what this will mean is that we will need to run a double shift in our elections office to be able to do this. We have space constraints in our facility. Our facility, as you all know, over the last 3 elections, we've fundamentally changed the way that we administer elections in this state. And we do much more physically in-house on property at the county than we used to. And we are physically constrained. Even if we had twice as many people, we don't have space for them to do that work during the day. And that's concerning to us, not only from a fiscal perspective, but also from a management perspective. It means dividing our senior management across those 2 shifts. So the depth of our bench is diminished somewhat as a result of that. We appreciate the waiver provision that's included here, and we do believe that Secretary Aguilar will work with us in good faith on that. But at some point, Secretary Aguilar will go on to bigger and better things, and there will be another secretary that comes after him at some point. And we don't know what that secretary would allow and how they would grant a waiver for that. And to the question that was asked earlier, what happens if we fail to do that? Existing law does contain some provisions that speak to when public officials fail to perform their duties. And a measure that's been considered by this body this session and is on its way to the governor will create misdemeanors for people for failing to perform their elections duties. So those are of concern to us. We would welcome the opportunity to continue conversations on this, to find a way. We share the Secretary's intent and desire to perform our duties as quickly as we can. And I know in Washoe County and all of the other counties, we endeavor to do that. We don't drag our feet for fun. We try to do things as quickly as we can. But this time frame is concerning to us. If indeed there are resources available that can come forward that can create space and pay for extra bodies for us, I think we'd be completely on board. I'm just not sure that at this point, and certainly from a local perspective and from the state's perspective, that there are indeed those resources available. But if you tell me otherwise, I'll be thrilled to get that news. Thanks.
Thank you, and I just have one question before we move on to the next county. With the amended language, would that adjust your fiscal note at all?
Madam Chair, Cadence Matievich, for the record, no. Our fiscal note did not contain any provisions that had to do with the use of ease in our jails. That is something that, in working with the Sheriff's Office, we felt we could do with our existing resources. Our fiscal note on the original version of the bill speaks specifically to the requirement to process in one day.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Kennedy, representing Clark County. And just in relation to our fiscal note, the fiscal note that we filed was as introduced, and it includes everything in the bill. I would say the majority of the fiscal note was related to Section 20, which is the section about processing everything the same day that it's received. So as introduced, we anticipated about a $1.2 million impact of staff cost that we would have to incur each election to meet those timelines, and about $1 million in capital cost, which would require a new machine, some new space. With the amendment as presented today, I do think realistically our fiscal note would be reduced, but I don't think it is zero.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthrow. Last name is spelled G-U-T-H-R-E-A-U. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Association of Counties. I won't belabor this. I think the community level perspective from both Washoe and Clark was probably helpful for this committee. I think for us, a couple things are the fiscal notes from the other counties, and those county clerks sort of ran the gambit, I would say. And I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't had a lot of time. I've jotted down some notes on the amendment as I've just seen it. The 24-hour time period for our smaller jurisdictions is tough from a resource allocation standpoint. I will say that's something that we put on the record in the policy committee also. It's not necessarily the same amount of volume as it is for the urban jurisdictions, but some of those resource allocations, and it is an impact for us. I will have to go back to get solid numbers, but I don't see as most of the sort of solid fiscal notes that were submitted do have to deal with that Section 20, and I don't think this changes it much. Again, first reading of it, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions for the counties while they're at the table? Not seeing any. Thank you so much. And Secretary, did you have anything before we go to testimony and support?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. I'm happy to exclude the smaller counties from the 24-hour requirement. The smaller counties actually do a really good job in processing and information to the public. It's our urban counties that have the mass quantities that we're trying to figure out efficiencies to be able to build that ability to inform the voter quicker and also get that information out there in a transparent way. So.
Thank you, and I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly. With the amended language removing the in custody, that would remove your fiscal note from your office in its entirety? Okay, thank you so much. All right. Then we will go to testimony in support of Assembly Bill 534.
Good evening, Chairman Moreno and committee members. For the record, my name is Emily Prasad Zamora, and that's spelled PERSAUD-ZAMORA, Executive Director of Silver State Voices, and I'll keep it short. We're in support. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Not seeing anyone else approach the table here in Carson City, and no one in the room in Las Vegas. Broadcast, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 534?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 534, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support.
Thank you so much. We'll move to opposition. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 534, I invite you to the tables. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City and no one in Las Vegas, we'll once again go to the phone line to see if we have anyone that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 534.
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 534, please press star 9 to join the queue.
Good evening. My name is Iris Stone, and I represent myself, IRISSTONE. While AB 534 covers the general topic of elections, it has 80 sections covering a wide variety of different subjects. Bills like this should not be permitted. That said, I strongly oppose Section 24 and 33 that would mandate changes to NRS 293.303, describing the term personal knowledge when submitting a challenge to a voter. The proposed definition is so strict that it would essentially lead to 100% de facto rejection of any challenge that a registered voter submits to the Secretary of State's office. Nevada can protect voters from discrimination and keep voter rolls clean without requiring outdated standards. The argument that someone must have personal knowledge of a voter's ineligibility, such as knowing firsthand that a person moved or no longer lives at the address where they're registered, made sense 30 years ago. Not so any longer in modern society with more than 2 million residents living in Clark County alone. The best evidence that someone has moved isn't whether their neighbor saw a moving truck with their furniture on it. I rather recommend that you replace the strict personal knowledge standard with the requirements for objective, verifiable evidence and from independent sources. For example, accept corroborated documentary evidence, permit the use of national change of address records from the U.S. Postal Service, or voter registration records in other states, or DMV changes, and utility records when more than one source indicates a voter has moved. It should also include timestamps for photographic evidence, such as voters' abandoned residence with mail piling up. By relying on modern technology, reliable data, and common sense, we can strike the right balance between election integrity and voter protection without cementing an obsolete standard into the law. I appreciate your attention, and good night.
Thank you for joining us, and good night to you. Broadcast, do we have any other callers?
If you've recently joined and would like to provide testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 534, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Caller ending in 142, please press star 6 to unmute and begin when ready.
Yes, this is Jeanette Dean, and I am a UNR alumna who studied political science. And I'm calling in opposition to certain parts of the bill. I'd like to direct people to Section 28. It's saying that materials must be preserved for at least 22 months. And I have been involved in looking into some of the election concerns in swing states. Trump won all 7 swing states, and he didn't win the popular vote by that much, so it is odd. And we've been looking into early voting specifically, and even looking into early voting in 2020. And there are anomalies where tabulator machines over certain counts might have had computer algorithms that were flipping votes to another party. So therefore, I'd like the Secretary of State and others to consider changing that to over 48 months, because as these anomalies with these important elections are found, we need to extend that. The other thing I'd like to mention is the risk limiting audit that was done we found that the concerns are mainly in early voting. I'd like to understand if the bill can allow for coverage of hand count audits. For example, for November's race, Clark County only had 155 ballots audited, and yet we don't know how many of those were early votes. And again, the concerns are on certain tabulators, and I've recently sent our concerns to the Clark County Board of Commissioners Chairman, Tick Segerblum, so that we can get some hand count audits done. But because this bill is going forward, and again, Washoe County, we'd like to see some audits, only 40 were done. So I'd like the new bill to address my concerns that the presidential election, with how important it is to all voters. My governor is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who was the vice presidential candidate. And Nevada's voting tally is important to me and others. So again, I'd like the Secretary of State to consider increasing that, because let's say right now we want to access November 2020 early voting records. Have they been destroyed? I'm not sure about that, and I don't agree with the change that announcements of destructions of record would be limited to one newspaper of general circulation or the internet website of the county clerk or the social media. I want all three
I would like to,
publications
I hate to
made.
interrupt you, and I appreciate your calling in. If you could send in the remainder of your testimony, we have a 2-minute limit, and you've exceeded that, but I appreciate you staying
Certainly.
with us. Thank you so much. Broadcast, do we have any other callers?
Chair, we have no additional callers for opposition.
Thank you so much. We will move to neutral. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 534, I invite you to the table. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City, and knowing that there's no one in the room in Las Vegas. Broadcast, do we have anyone who has joined us on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 534?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 534, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, we have no callers for neutral testimony.
Thank you so much. We'll ask our Secretary of State if you have any closing comments.
Just want to thank you for your time tonight and let you know that Nevada does run some of the most safe, secure, and accessible elections in the country. We're trying to build transparency into that process, and we believe this bill helps us do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us tonight. And with that, we'll close the hearing for Assembly Bill 534. And members, we will open the hearing for the last bill on our second agenda for the night. It will be Assembly Bill 304. The other two bills on our agenda, Assembly Bill 169 and Assembly Bill 460, we will roll until tomorrow's agenda. And with that, we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 304. Good evening.
Good evening. I know we're all tired. It's been a very long day. I'm going to try and make this as fast as I can. Chair Monroe Moreno, Vice Chair Backus, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I am Assembly Member Venice Karras, and I have the honor of representing Assembly District 10 in Las Vegas. I really want to thank you. I so appreciate the time that you're giving me to present this bill at the last moment. I do appreciate it. AB 304 relates to electromagnetic brain pulse treatment. For a bit of background, EMBP treatment uses various medical devices to uniquely image electrical activity in the brain. identify areas that may not be functioning properly, and most importantly, stimulate the neurons with the goal of restoring optimal brain function using a non-pharmaceutical, non-invasive method. In recent years, research has shown that this treatment can effectively treat neuropsychiatric disorders, including major depressive disorder, anxiety, substance use disorders, and addictions such as gambling. I gave you that, and I know we're really short on time, but a lot of you may not be familiar with this therapy. I do have an amendment, Chair. It is rather extensive. This was basically gut and restate to remove the DHHS fiscal note that was in excess of $15 million. I do have a letter stating such has been submitted to the committee. Also provided is a document with a much smaller fiscal note of $98,000 for data collection, analysis, and quarterly reports to be submitted directly to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau. I want you to know that DHHS has removed the $15 million plus fiscal note. So now it's down to $98,000. And in addition, we checked back with all the municipalities who originally claimed no fiscal impact and have received responses stating the amendment does not affect their original assessment of zero fiscal impact. The counties include Churchill County, Clark County, Douglas County, Elko, Humboldt, Lyon, Pershing, and Washoe. Lincoln County was not able to determine a fiscal impact at this time, stating that the state could possibly pass on portions of the cost to the county. I myself don't see how that's possible if they're not trying to do it. But we'll leave that as it said. We also heard from Carson City with no fiscal impact. With that, committee, I'm just going to let it go so that we can move on with our other duties. Thank you all very, very much, and I will now take questions.
Thank you so much for your patience to be the last bill of the day. Members, do you have any questions? I jokingly called this one the brain zapper bill when I looked at it. You mentioned that there is an amended fiscal note. We unfortunately do not have that one. No, for the 98,000. So, and there's no one here from DHHS to testify to the new amount. So if you could just get that to us for the file, that would be great. Members, any other questions? Oh, I have the amendment itself. I don't have the amended fiscal note. Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. It's late in the evening, so perhaps we can get that tomorrow. One moment. See no questions? I'll ask you to go ahead and take a seat back. We will connect tomorrow. Ask that you reach out to Department of Health and Human Services, DPBH tomorrow, and see if they can get us an updated fiscal note for the file. That would be wonderful. And I'll invite to the table anyone that's here to testify in support of Assembly Bill 304. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the committee. Dev Bararia, DEVBARARIA, here today representing the Nevada Opioid Treatment Association. I want to thank the bill sponsor for bringing up this vitally important legislation. Substance use disorders can often be resistant to traditional treatments, and this pilot program will help produce really good results. We stand in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else approach the table here in Carson City and not seeing anyone at the table in Las Vegas. Broadcast, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 304?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 304, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. We will move to opposition. If there's anyone that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 304, I invite you to the table. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City and no one at the table in Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone lines again to see if there's anyone that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 304.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 304, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to the neutral position. If there's anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 304, we invite you to the tables. And not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City and not having anyone in the room in Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone lines one last time to see if we have anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 304.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 304, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. And we'll ask the sponsor if you have any closing comments.
Denise Karras for the record. I wasn't going to take your time, but I just wanted, you guys did not receive this in all the information. You do have that?
We do have that, but this did not come from the Department of Health and Human Services.
No.
So I need something from their department that says what their fiscal note is.
Okay, I got that, and their letter isn't enough, so make sure they give me something in writing
Don't
that
have that
removes it.
letter.
You don't have that letter?
No.
All
No,
right.
we do
We'll
not have
submit
the
that.
letter.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, and
Thank-
thank you all very much.
All right. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 304. And we'll go to the last item on our agenda for today's meeting or tonight's meeting, and that is public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to make public comment, I invite you to the table. And not seeing anyone approach the table here and not having anyone at the table in Las Vegas broadcast, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to provide public comment at this time?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. And members, that's the last item for us to work through tonight. I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. However, I guess we'll see each other on the floor in just a few minutes. So this meeting is adjourned.